Hey, welcome to another episode of the Geek 2.0 podcast. I'm Josh, and joined with me as always is Joe. And today we got Tommy as our little man on the street. How's it going, everybody?
It's going great. Spectacular.
So what's the word down on Main Street there, Tommy?
The word is cover your goddamn. Oh, I can't say that. Cover your mouth with a mask when you go out. That's the word on the street.
Yeah. Make sure, just don't rub your nose and touch everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's everybody doing?
Surviving.
Yeah, surviving.
Same here. Doing great. Yeah.
So actually we got a pretty good show. That's the reason why we also had Tommy here, because also another expert in this field of our discussion is
Setting that bar high again.
Well, you gotta set it somewhere. If it's high, low, or buried, it's somewhere.
That is a true statement.
It is. But yeah, we want to talk about bringing your kids into the video creation, video editing space, and how to do it safely, and teach them what to do or how to find the best tools in doing things. And try to steer clear of like certain trends, because that's only like a flash pan in the wide range. Wow. Wide range of things. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
There's a lot to go over in that department, especially with every kid that you know wants to start a YouTube channel until they find out what you have to do to build a YouTube channel, and then they don't ever want to do it ever again.
Yep. And all the behind the scenes work that you have to do. That I'll refer to you guys as not disparaging, that normies don't really see.
Can't you just use the built-in Windows Movie Maker, or I believe Apple's got something built into
Joe,
it, and just be done?
Movie Maker? What's
that? That is. I'm going to tell you something. That's actually where I started when I was in my teens and 20s. Was because you can't teens and 20s. You can't afford anything, especially a laptop that could run Adobe Premiere back in that day.
Oh, gee.
But yeah, I started with Windows Movie Maker and hoped by the end of my little 5-minute video that it would render before it exploded.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we started at Movie Maker because I remember doing that as well. I never really touched anything on Apple side because I never had any access to it besides at school, and I really don't know how, because I know there was Fusion? No, Final Cut. That's Final Cut. It's over on the Apple side. Yeah.
And then open source, after I kind of graduated from that, Windows Movie Maker, I moved over to Wax, which was an open source, kind of like GIMP for, Photoshop. And that was another one, super powerful, ridiculous if you knew how to put in all the plugins. But there was a steep learning curve.
But yeah, it's actually nowadays it's a lot easier because you can simply do a Google search and put in video editing, and you'll get inundated with all sorts of stuff that is available. And I'm not going to use the term experts. There are people who have different levels of experience of working with these tools. So I think what the main thing is, have your kids go through and look at all the different videos and see which ones or which creators that they enjoy the most from, instead of, well, you got to learn the Adobe products from this person and that's it. It's like, that's actually the wrong way to do it, because they'll rebel against you.
Well, like with my kids, that when or anybody that reaches out to me and wants to get into the video editing or doing stuff in Adobe Premiere or After Effects, is don't start with movies. Don't look at movies and see, all right, this is the kind of editing that I want to do. I tell them, look at commercials, because your videos are probably going to be at people get bored unless you're making an actual series within a couple of minutes. You're looking at an Instagram post or something along those lines. A commercial has to convey a detailed story within a minute. So kind of showing how I always use that as an example of somebody's kind of looking at how they want to edit or how they want to like add stuff to their video. I tell them, go ahead and look at just commercials. Don't scare yourself with full-length movies.
But isn't the Adobe like Premiere and all that, isn't that like a license that's very expensive?
It used to be. It used to be really the level of entry was really expensive, and still kind of not cheap. But right now you can get. So how it kind of breaks down is you can buy Adobe Cloud, right? And for After Effects and for Adobe Premiere, it's $20 per license for that, or you can pay $50 a month and you get the full suite. Photoshop, InDesign, pretty much everything that you need from Adobe for any kind of digital creation is just $50 a month for Adobe Cloud.
Is that a per person or is that a per computer type of license?
I've never had a problem where I've bumped into like running it off multiple computers.
Okay.
I think it's allowed on two individual computers for personal use. But yeah, so like right now, Josh has that screen up, and as you can see, you can buy the individual packs, or for $50 a month, you can get all of this.
Right. But looking at this, it's like, yeah, it's a awesome piece of software. But for someone that's just starting out, when they're looking at this, like, oh, I got to put out like at most $50 a month, because you're looking at doing starting video editing. Well, you also had to think about motion graphics, which Premiere does a pretty good job as well, or also vector graphics. So you got to add in the was it Illustrator, and then of course you go down that rabbit hole, and then there's Photoshop. So you kind of don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Oh, I'm just going to do editing, and like, yeah, that's great. Learn the process, but you want to also dabble on a little bit in everything else.
Now, well, I think we might. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves, because the big question is, before we get into all of this, how do you kind of start? What should you look at as a whole before you even start dumping a boatload of money that might not go anywhere?
One thing
for a hobby
is your kid, are they putting out are they wanting to do something like this? Not just because it is a phase that, oh, I want to be my like this famous YouTuber, and I want to do these live streams or game let's plays or anything like that. See what they're doing, like see what their creative outlet is. I'm speaking of, from mine, is I thought it was going to be photography with my daughter, but she's moving. She has more inclination to doing drawing and that side of things than more the photography side. So she's also wants to do some video editing. She actually talked to me a couple of days ago where she wants to learn how to do video editing because she watches me do it as well, and she wants to do it. The only problem is her computer is not powerful enough for most things. It's not even running a game all that well nowadays. So it's just one of those things where I looked at it and say, okay, we're upgrading your computer, so let's hold off on that, but we'll go ahead and see what avenues you want to go through and see if this is what you want to do. Because when you jump in, there is a learning curve that for any kind of software that you use, there is a big learning curve in how to edit. And you just have to make the realization is that you're going to go through 100 or 1,000 videos that you've done that are completely garbage. That you just have to get that out of the way, get the garbage out before you can start making anything good.
Well, I think especially people only see the finished product when you're doing video.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people think, well, it's going to be a 5-minute video. It's going to take 5 minutes for everything. I'm going to get my video done and all this, maybe 10 on top of that, maybe, right? Of video editing. And when I tell people, I'm like, well, 5 minutes, like a 3-minute video edit takes me anywhere between, depending on the kind of things that you're going to put in this video, I'm talking about just raw editing, takes me about 45 minutes to do 5 minutes worth of video, if not more. And I'm talking, that's very, very basic editing. So people kind of go into this, or, you're starting to teach your kids and it's like, all right, here we've done this video. And then it's like, well, now we're going to go back and spend 2.5 hours putting it all together so it actually makes sense, and cutting through different takes. And I think that's a really good indication on what the dedication level, like you find out very quickly in video editing how much that dedication is to working on that project with a kid.
Oh yeah, especially when you're scrubbing through a video, like you're looking at double or triple speeds as to get through most of it, and you're okay. Well, that's a good point. All right, let me go back. Then you look at it's like, yeah, it's a good point, but it doesn't make sense in the overall scheme of things. That something that you thought wasn't a good take, it actually works a lot better in your video.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find the diamond in the rough.
Well, I think the other thing is you don't want to overwhelm anybody. You don't want to overwhelm your kids with it. You don't want to overwhelm anybody that you're teaching. So what I generally do when it comes to video editing with mostly my stepdaughter, because she's the one that's into doing videos, especially skateboarding videos, is I'll take a good 90% of the editing, and then I just kind of have her look over my shoulder to figure out what kind of design that she wants, what kind of graphics that she want. And then I find that all of a sudden makes her more interested in doing the graphical work, instead of like, all right, here's a laptop, go to town, I'm going to look over your shoulder while you do this. I kind of lead her away. So it keeps her interested. It keeps her wanting to do more because she's not doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Right.
What would you recommend would be a good starting point, though, for someone that's getting into it?
The first thing that you want to do is, luckily, the entry point is so much easier than it was. Everybody has a 4K camera in their pocket, and they're, especially depending on the phone that you have, like a Samsung takes incredible video. iPhones, like people film commercials and TV shows on iPhones. So you've already got that, one of the most expensive aspects of making video out of the way. So, that makes it a little bit easier. But then also kind of going through, once again, like kind of going through commercials, maybe a couple of interesting videos on YouTube, find something that's a little bit exciting for them to do, something with a lot of motion, a lot of action in it. This way, it's not a talking head video. It's not, it's not your typical TikTok video or something along those lines. You want to make it a little bit more interesting. So if they're into cycling, get a little cell phone mount for their bike and mount it to the front, and tell them, all right, go ahead and make a cool video of you cycling, if you're or skateboarding for my stepdaughter. So I find it easy if you tie that video into something that they're already kind of into. It keeps their interest longer, and it gets them more excited about it.
And it also brings out the more creative side of, okay, so let's take stepdaughter there, talking about with the skateboarding. Say, okay, what else can I do? Instead of making this boring skate video, what other aspects can you do to make it, like, punch it up a little bit more? So it brings out the creative side a lot more with how they look at their everyday life and how they want to do the different projects that they want to do.
Well, so especially one of the hardest parts for a lot of people is trying to get the beat of a video. Whenever I'm editing a video, especially one that I have complete control over, I like to edit it to a soundtrack. So generally, I kind of get an idea of what I want in my video, how I want it to kind of look, and then I figure out like the genre of music, or maybe a musician that I want to edit that video to. So like I'll pick out the music first, I'll start dumping my clips in that I know I want, and then depending on the beat of the video or different changes in tempo, I will edit based off of that. From my understanding, James Gunn actually kind of uses the same mentality making his movies. He actually picks out the soundtrack first, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and then builds the scenes around the music that he's already selected. basically I'm making the musician doing all the heavy lifting of how to make it interesting.
Well, there was this interesting thing back in the day when we were growing up. It's called music videos.
Yeah, crazy concept.
Yeah, it's this crazy concept where the artist makes this music and then they have a director come in and try to craft a story around that particular song or whatever direction that they want to go through, which is very similar to how a director goes through and tries to make a commercial because they only got 30 seconds. Here, at least they got a little bit more, like 3 to 5 minutes. And we've seen some of these like back in the early 80s where it's the epic storytelling sagas, like especially with Michael Jackson.
I knew that was going to come up.
Yeah. Where it's this 10 to 15 minute long music video, but there's like 5 minutes bookends on either side of the actual video. And it all flows in from one to the next. It's like a musical, pretty much, the simplest way to think about it. And then,
so it's fun.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, so I actually, when you go ahead, damn, flip this table over. So one of the things that actually, because when I first started getting interested in video editing, the equipment was my biggest roadblock. It was so expensive. I'm talking, this is mid 2000s is when I first started messing around with it. This is a dirty secret that not a lot of people know about me. I started doing, and this is early YouTube. I'm talking about before it was owned by Google. I liked doing anime music videos. So I would download a bunch of animes and pick out a song that I wanted to run it with, and then I would edit. And it was a nerdy thing. Like there was even a website dedicated just to anime even before YouTube, of uploading really crappy anime clips and mixing it with with audio from your favorite song. And that's actually how I started and learned how to edit, was making these really, really bad anime music videos.
I remember watching those as well. The most famous one I've seen was the Phantom of the Opera one with the anime. I can't even remember what anime it was from, but how it was set up was fit along with the song, and it was like a techno remix of it as well.
I think
it would have been the Pikachu with I know the name of the song. I'm trying to remember the name of the band now. Oh, I just lost it.
I think there's still one of mine somewhere floating around YouTube that somebody, no anger, because I was like 21 when I made this, from Kingdom Hearts. No, sorry, not Kingdom Hearts, of the Cowboy Bebop movie to Jay-Z and Linkin Park's album.
Nice.
I randomly find that in my feed sometimes from somebody else that uploaded it from the original anime music video website. So,
but, yeah, and looking back at that, and you couldn't upload it to pretty much YouTube. Well, no, you could, but it took a while, and you're looking at maybe 200 to 500 megs of a file size.
Yeah.
That it took you pretty much a couple days. I mean, at that time, we were downloading songs from Napster, over the weekend, so you can have your playlist for next weekend.
Oh yeah, all that stuff would take about just to download one song. I know for me, back in the Napster days, was an hour and a half to 2 hours, I think, just for one song. So it was a dedication. It was a high level of dedication. Just to,
yeah, that's why you set up the songs that you want. You let them go in the queue, and you just let it go all for a couple days.
It was mindless self-indulgence. That was the band.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
It was them with the one song that they had, "Bitches" with the Pikachu. That was
makes sense.
It was great.
So right now. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, looking at, I know a little bit of lag, but it's all right. Looking at how we've come to actually now with the tools that we can utilize, like you mentioned with your phone, you can easily make 4K videos, and the extra equipment that you would actually want, like let's say a gimbal, is what, $200 to $400 depending on what size gimbal that you want.
Yeah,
So
so
making
yeah, like
actual films is something where it's easier to do, or not films, but any kind of content is easier to do.
yeah, it is, especially like I said, most people have these incredible, cameras that, when I first started weren't even available, and if they were, they were $20,000. Now you just have it in your pocket with you all the time, and
Mhm.
even like gimbal technology. Like I had a Steadicam, like an old school Steadicam that was like 180 pounds, and that was, I think when I bought one, it was about $1,500, and that thing, was heavy. You can only hold it for a little while and everything. And now, like one of my favorite pieces of equipment right here is I take, I do have gimbals and everything like that for my main cameras, but this I keep in my pocket all the time. This is a DJI Osmo Pocket.
Mhm.
This thing does 4K, I think 6K too. But I mean, this thing stays stable no matter what kind of position you put it on. You can hook it up to your cell phone and get even more control over it. And you can pick these up now for, maybe 200, $300 for the first gen. And then the next gen, I think is only like 400. And then also like even this guy, this is a Insta360. This is the first generation 1X 360 camera. This thing I use probably the second most used camera that I have, just because, especially for action videos or skateboarding videos, you just click the button, press record, and it just goes and it gets everything. And then even the programs that you use to kind of crop it into, say, your regular 1080, still, a stationary frame or whatever,
Mhm.
it's crazy easy. You can do it on your cell phone. Back in the day, to render 360 video, you needed a supercomputer. Now you can do it on your, on my Pixel or your iPhone or your Samsung.
I love the fact though that we're talking about this like two, $300, $400 maximum, like it's nothing. We're talking. You got to remember these are
Well,
kids
Yeah, these are
starting.
kids. Yeah.
oh, I get that 100%. I get that 100%. But it's not $20,000 like it used to
Correct.
be. If your kid, I'm not saying go ahead and start by having your kids like, here, I bought you $8,000 worth of camera equipment. Now go ahead and make a stupid movie. I'm talking about like all of a sudden, all right, Bobby's really into this. McKenna's really into this. It's no longer like, oh crap, we can buy one camera. It's going to be $15,000, and this kid better get into some amazing film school,
And not
or
drunk.
better be, yeah, or better get that million likes on Facebook. I mean, on the YouTubes, or I'm going to kill him.
But yeah, it's actually a lot of kids nowadays have what hand-me-downs of iPads and iPhones.
Yeah,
So their barrier of entry is probably a lot less because you already paid $700 to $1,200 for that phone, and it's already gone through 2 or 3 kids, and it's still a capable product to create something with. But yeah, speaking on Joe's point, it's like we're talking about, oh, it's only a couple $100. It's like pocket here you go. Here's some pocket change. Here you go, kid.
we spare no expense, just throw money everywhere.
Okay, Hammond.
But I just think it's amazing because, like, for anybody back in our generation that wanted to get into this, you really had to spend so much money. It was insane. And the other thing is, and it's like Photoshop in general. If anybody ever messes around Photoshop, a lot of stuff is way easier now because artificial intelligence does a lot of stuff for you.
Mm.
Um, say for instance, you are going to go the route, and your kids want to upgrade from using their cell phone apps, like say Adobe Rush, which is a cell phone based video editing app, and it's actually really a powerful, pretty impressive video editing app. Or there's also like Viva Video and stuff like that. That's a subscription service for like $3 a month for cell phone editing. But now artificial intelligence made it a lot easier. Um, say for instance, you want to go ahead, I want to cut out Joe's head and place it on Josh's. back in the day,
As you would.
as you would. Why when
Yeah.
you want to do that? Back in the day, you would have to what's called keyframe that. So I'd have to cut out Joe with a mask, and then move his head over to you, and then I'd have to manually animate the lips and everything like that, and put keyframes so his face follows your face. Well,
Yeah, and
now
tracking.
and tracking. Now they just have tracking, which just gets better every single time Adobe does an upgrade to the point where you can do rotoscoping, which is basically cutting out a moving figure or something out. And now you don't even need a green screen. I can take this video afterwards and rotoscope us all into a different environment without having to use a green screen. And with the new version in After Effects, it's really good. It just does it on its own. You just let it chug through, and you may have to fix a couple pieces, but it's literally drawing and coloring in the areas that you want in and what you don't want in, which back in the day used to be a nightmare. But now it's you can tell your kids like, oh, just click this button and we'll do it for you.
And yeah, speaking of artificial intelligence, that's actually what I'm using for this. My background is I'm using this as a regular C922. This is all done through NVIDIA's AI, through their broadcast software. So I mean, I can cut out my my background completely. That's just clicking a button.
Yeah, and it works.
So it's pretty much just taking everything out. Yeah, and of course for audio people, I went through my background is now black. I'm in a black void. I'm in a black hole.
like John Oliver. See,
I'm the opposite of John Oliver. I'm in the black void of space
instead of the white abyss.
Yeah.
Like right now, obviously if anybody's watching the feed, you see that I have sparkosoft.com above my head. Long story short, my normal video production laptop exploded on me last night. Heartbroken. I'm fixing it right now, but I had to borrow my girlfriend's laptop. But like right now, I have a Canon M50 hooked up with a very fancy lens, which once again would be expensive. But that bokeh that you're getting, that nice fuzzy background, you have to buy a special lens to do that. Now it just does it through artificial intelligence. So once again, the barrier for entry is way cheaper now. Which for kids, man, if you can get them into it, it's a great hobby. And especially if they get into the special effects aspects of it.
Yeah. Speaking of special effects, I know, Joe, I don't know if you remember this when we did that little stop motion.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that this whole time.
Yeah, it was with your parents' camcorder. I think it was like an 8mm or some kind of, I forget the format. But we did using Legos pretty much.
Yep.
Making a stop motion video movie. And I know the funniest part we did is where it went to the bathroom. The shoes.
That was the pair of shoes, yeah.
Yeah, it went to the bathroom, and one of us had started pouring water into the toilet.
It was like it was like an invisible man just wearing shoes around his house.
Yeah, doing practical effects. So I know we've been in this game for a long time, and kids still do that. I mean, they make Lego sets that geared for making stop motion film.
Yeah, they have an entire kit now for that.
So the funny thing is, my kids, that's one of the first video things that they wanted to do with stop motion. And I had to break it down for them. I was like, listen, whatever you're going to do, it's going to take a while, because, your average animated series is about 20 frames per second. So for every shot, if you take 20 shots, that's 1 second of video. When they realize, I want to make a 10-minute video, I'm like, you're going to be here for a couple of days if you want to make a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
I was like, they're like, what about like a 2-minute video? I'm like, that's a little bit more in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, but it's still fun to do, because I mean, back when Josh and I were doing that, I mean, it was the over-the-shoulder VHS camcorder, so it was literally like push record, stop record, push record, stop record. So it wasn't exactly a frame by frame; it was more like 1 second blips. You know what I mean? So it was a lot more jerky motion and everything, but it was still fun that we do this, then pop it in the VCR, and we rewind and watch it again, and it was actually really cool to see it come to life.
There,
And that
there's
took a
apps
couple
right now.
hours to do.
And kept us busy.
There's Oh yeah, yeah. If my kids had the attention span, I'd be like, go make a stop motion animated series, please. Um, it's but now they even have apps for your cell phone that is just strictly for stop motion animation. That's all it does. My stepdaughter loves that app. She uses it on her Legos all the time.
I think the overall arching connection to is a Legos to how uh, people start going from one thing to filmmaking to making something. Is Legos are the simplest things that you can find, and they're cheap too. Well, cheap.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
me, that
Once
is
again,
Legos are the
Yeah.
entry point for anything.
Yeah.
Truly, it
Oh, yeah.
could be the entry point for art. It could be the entry point for editing. It could be the entry point for programming. It could be the entry point for direct. Literally anything creative, you can start with Legos.
The Legos pretty much runs the world.
Kind of.
Oh yeah.
They're the
No, I mean,
Illuminati.
it's just it makes you think of artistic thingies at a young age.
Mhm.
It's everything from architecture to art. Set design.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really, if you really want to get your kids into video and stuff like that, Legos action figures. I
Mhm.
know a couple of people on you. I'm sorry, not YouTube, on the Instagrams that all they do is action figure videos and photography.
Oh, some of those
Where,
action shots that
oh,
they
some of the action
do.
shots, amazing.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Oh yeah, and they're firecrackers and sparklers
Mhm.
that they use in the dirt with some water, and it absolutely looks amazing.
Yeah, I love seeing those.
Yeah, so
So,
when I think I forget who the photographer is, but he makes where the stormtroopers
Mhm.
are like they're in Forest Moon of Endor, but there's just this small little action figures that he uses, and of course everything is all with how the framing and um, uh, depth of field it makes it seem more alive.
oh yeah, yeah, and that's now you could do that with your cell phone. If you've got a Pixel, if you've got a relatively new Pixel, or even iPhones now have that incredible portrait mode that give you
Mhm.
that nice artificial. Some of it's using different technologies. Some of it uses AI. Some of it actually uses some lens tricks. But it gives you this nice bokeh, this nice depth of field that you could take these photos, tweak a little stuff in Lightroom, add a little something to it, and then they look amazing. They look incredible.
Yeah, no, I was because I use a DSLR as well, and I go around when I can. But what made me realize how powerful, like even with an iPhone is, like the iPhone 12 or new phones, is night photography. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
you would have to set up, okay, you gotta make sure you're okay, you got your ISO, and then you have to make sure everything's all locked in, and you can't move to the camera because any kind of movement is exaggerates whatever light source that you have or
Mhm.
any point in your shot. But with this, did last Halloween, this went out, and you can see everything clearly because it takes, I think, what 12 images stacked up on each other
Hmm.
within as soon as you hit the shutter. I'm like, holy crap! I couldn't get like the moon behind the clouds is all nice and defined. The house is all lit up, and you can see the people. They're not blurs or they're not like ghosts.
Not true Halloween then.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going for that. There was like maybe a couple ghosts, but it's just one of those things where it's like, wow, I did not realize how far we've come with technology or camera technology that this small little uh, glass brick that you have in your pocket can take such easy photos. That's just photos. Video is even better.
Yeah.
And it's only getting better too, which
Oh
is
yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, some of the image stabilization on cameras now is like you don't need a gimbal. You can run,
Hmm.
and between the optical image stabilization and the software stabilization, it is smooth as anything.
Mhm.
And like I said, that's always in your pocket. Even with my camera, I have a Pixel 5. Video, eh. Still prefer other methods. It's not the best
Yeah.
for video, but like going back to the photography aspect of things, is I I could sit there and fumble around with my SLR for a couple of minutes, maybe get a couple of shots, have to readjust, go ahead and change some things. Or I can just whip out my camera, take a quick snapshot, and the photos 90% of the time just come out even better than anything that I could probably sit there and really fumble around
Mhm.
and then take photos with my camera, put it into Lightroom, do my editing, and or I can just take it with my camera and just does it kind of automatically. Which hurts a little bit because you spend all this time building these skills and it's like, oh, you just
Yeah.
don't, that's just not a thing you do anymore. Like, why
Because
would you
that's what I
do
was going
that?
to say is like you have the equipment. It's like, oh, but it's just the fact is like, okay, like even professional photographers, they still have to make adjustments on the fly. Like, okay, and then let's do this, change your speed and all that. But with the phone, it's just like, click and and it's done. And then even then, you can download like Procreate or some kind of even Photoshop on your phone and do
Mhm.
some light editing right there on the spot, and then send it up wherever you want to do it.
Yeah, when I first just when I got back into doing video editing a couple of years ago and getting back into making videos, I most of my videos that I edited were just straight on my cell phone. Like because I didn't at that point have a computer that was strong enough to run real video editing apps or anything like that. And I would put stuff out and I'd be like, oh, this is just some janky thing I put and used, Adobe Rush on. And people are like, God, this is a really great video. And I did it all on my cell phone, which
Hmm.
to this day still just blows my mind. That because if you start getting to real video editing, it's either you can do it on your cell phone or you need a crazy strong computer. There is no middle ground.
But that's actually that line is getting blurred even today or a couple years ago, where you had the latest up graphics cards. I'm not going to talk about our current situation with the GPUs, and uh, that's a whole nother. But even before you got Nvidia was doing really good things with the 20 series of cards when they first came out. It's like you can do. I think that's when they started ray tracing,
Mhm.
where in like games and stuff, where it's realistic reflections and light effects and shadows on this card that just came out. And now, not even what, not even 6 years later, it's still blown out of proportion of what we have now and able to do your rendering. You don't need rendering farms to do any kind of animation work or film making or anything like that, because you can do it on your computer.
Well, I think that's even going to change in the future now. The Unreal Engine character creator that they just put out, the cloud-based one, where all the computation is done on the server side in the cloud.
Mhm.
And I think once we kind of start working on bandwidth and internet connectivity, maybe with rollout of 5G, is that you no longer even need a very strong computer to be able to edit because you'll be able to upload your raw video files up to the cloud. And then there, Adobe's server farm does all the computation and all the rendering for you.
Mhm.
I can definitely see, instead of just downloading the app or downloading the software, you literally just go to adobe.com or whatever cloud video editing service you want to use, and it just does it all there. So you'll be able to edit on a Commodore 64 in the future. You'll be able to make movies on, an Apple Lisa. So
I don't know if those were be able, even
Um,
back in the day. Those.
we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
kind of off the
Elon Musk
subject.
will do it.
Whatever happened with Google's internet that they had that was like in like 3 cities?
Oh, the
That was supposed to be the game
gigabit fiber.
changer. Yeah, it was supposed to be like the game changer coming everywhere that just fell off the map.
The
So
reason why, because Google found out how hard it was to fight against the entrenched monopolies
Mhm.
and how expensive it was.
Yes, and how
Like
how
Comcast.
involved that government was. How
Hmm.
how they had so many, because they did, they just bought dark fiber all over the place and started connecting it, and then other telecoms started coming and be like, whoa, No, you can't do that. That's not cool.
Uh,
No,
we don't do that here.
we don't do that here. Stop. Put put the cable down and go back.
Go back to California where you belong, Google.
Yes,
The
plebeians.
Midwest belongs to us.
As somebody that just recently left the telecom field, that is 100% just kind of how they roll.
Yeah,
So
we've seen a little bit from just on one other side, Joe and I, with the support side, and it's true how it's a legalized monopoly. How certain neighborhoods are only one company, and the other neighborhood across the street is a different company. Even if you do have that, what is it? 60% of the country only has one choice if you have that.
yeah, you only have one choice, and even when you do, a lot of them have to. So like it's local areas actually have one provider, even if you have multiple choices for provider. Say, for
Mhm.
instance, like a former employer of mine, they have the majority of what's called the backbone, the internet backbone, which is pretty much all the fiber that all the internet goes over. So even if you have Verizon, Verizon is paying my other old company to run that network because it has to go from one network to another. So they use different backbones to run those. So even if you're not paying for, say, Verizon, you're using maybe Cox Internet. Verizon is paying Cox to run internet over to you and vice versa because they're not allowed to move into each other's territories.
Nope. And that's the world we have to live with.
For now.
America.
For now.
But yeah,
Trust me,
it's
we're
with going off the little tangent there is that's one major issue is if we do start seeing cloud-based render farms or processing plants for your projects, a lot of the people, and especially in rural or rural areas or even in city areas, they don't have the bandwidth in order to upload their content or their files and then download the processed ones. So it's just one of those things where I look at cell carriers as possible avenues that we still have to deal with data caps and limits on that stuff as well. It's still not good when you look at both avenues on how we are here in, say, in the U.S. Other countries, yeah, it's no problem, but here in the U.S., it's a catch-22. I want to say.
Well, even with
well,
the whole 5G thing, like, while yeah, you get this great bandwidth, this great performance out of it, how long until it's cluttered up? When 4G came out, that was the end all be all, and yeah, it's definitely better than 3G, but it's we're now looking towards 5G of being the hope of like getting the speed that we actually want. It's going to get just as cluttered as everything else because there's so much running through it because of people that are the backbones that you talked
Mhm.
about. You know what I mean? Like there's not much for an alternative, so it's going to get congested.
yeah, and that's unfortunate. I think that's politically going to change. Unfortunately, it's going to take an act of government to kind of make internet instead of like a want. Because at this point, we especially now with
Oh
everything
yeah,
going on in the world,
it's a
the
need
internet
now.
it's a need. It should be considered. And I used to get in trouble for saying this at the company I used to work at. It should be a utility.
It
Hmm.
Uh,
is. It should be.
and once
Yeah.
it should be a utility. Because if as of right now, like if last time I checked, there's almost 1.5 million U.S. citizens that are still on dial-up, and other countries like I think we're rated either 27th or third, like anywhere between 27th and 37th in the world for internet connectivity. Um, and things are just kind of going to pass us by if we don't change that.
Just because we make it a utility isn't necessarily going to change the aspect for those people on dial-up. Because think of how many people are still on well water out in those areas. Think of how many people that are still on septic tanks instead of sewage systems. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there's still going to be people that are on dial-up or lower end speed just because we move it to a utility. While
Well,
I'm not arguing with you. I
yeah.
definitely agree it should be a utility. We can't use the argument of the people that are on dial-up because it's not going to fix it for everybody.
Well, I think
no,
one
it,
major issues is that when electricity was being rolled out to a lot of the rural areas, it was an initiative. I forget exactly when it was, like the 30s or 40s. Is that hey, we need to get as many people on the power grid
mhm.
because of whatever. I don't know. I wasn't around at that time,
You're
but
not that old.
it's no, I'm not that old. Back in my day,
Yeah.
Pepperidge Farmer members.
Pretty much
But yeah,
true story.
it's pretty much. It was an initiative to roll out power lines to as many people in the U.S. as possible, especially in the rural areas. And how many times have you seen, um, if you go driving through the Midwest and there's like a lone trailer out in the middle of nowhere of like 60 miles, they still have power. They got that power line come running down the road
Yep.
to them.
Yeah, and like I said, working for a telecom, especially kind of what I was doing, like last couple of deals I was working on was for like a camp, and we had fiber optic on the road that the camp was located at. But if we were a utility, we would have to run that fiber optic cable to the building after they order it, regardless of
Hmm.
length or whatever. Um, but one of the things, the deal died because it was going to be they would have had to pay us $51,000 as an upfront cost just to run the cable to that location. Um, because if the if an internet service provider sees just like a standalone building and they don't see any way to recoup profit or whatever, they just don't run that cable. Even if the cable's right by their doorstep, if there's something blocking it, if there's a tree, if there's as soon as that cost is at a certain point, they just refuse to do it.
Because they're not going to recoup their costs within so many years.
Yeah, correct. Electric company would have to, because they are a
Yeah,
utility, but if within a
and
reasonable, I think
that's
within a reasonable amount.
yeah, and there's miles or thousands of miles of, like you said, mentioned before, dark fiber, that the
Mm,
fiber lines already been dug, entrenched, and are there. It's just dark. It's not on, and what it is that I think a lot of people are so hung up on the big bad government and say, I don't need that. We need small government, but there are services. Look at Starlink, the
mm,
new thing going out that is actually pretty good for a satellite based ISP, and that you're
yeah.
getting the bandwidth that is like low tier, high speed, but you can set it up whenever or wherever you are.
Well, I know, like where I live. So you guys live in civilization, unlike me. I live in a small northern town in
I
Florida.
wouldn't call it civilization either. And we got cows.
Hey, I where my town is known for horses, so I have no room. But one of the things that we have is it's an interesting kind of thing, especially with COVID, uh, that we weren't supposed to have 5G for like another 3 years. Now we have 5G being built all over the place. One of my friends reached out to me because she's working from home for education. She works in education. She's working from home, but she's got fiber, but whatever the pop is, which is the point of presence, just is oversaturated because everybody's working from home, everybody's streaming,
Yeah.
all the kids are going to school from home. So she can't do her job. There are no other options in her area because once again, it's a monopoly. The only thing that's available to her is Cox Internet. She reached out to me. She's like, "What can I do to fix this?" I'm like, "Well, if you got this in place, you got this in place. But everybody in your neighborhood's complaining about the internet. Until that internet service provider comes out there and fixes it, there's nothing. You got nothing." The only other option that she had, and this has been kind of a growing industry because of COVID, is line of sight internet services. So what that kind of is somebody will go and buy a boatload of bandwidth from, say, your local internet service provider, and then they'll take a little set. Verizon or whoever's the local carrier, Comcast, anybody that's a nightmare to deal with. And what they're going to do is they build up a cell phone tower pretty much, or put it on top of the building, and then they take a little satellite dish at your house and point it directly at their little satellite dish on their tower. And that's kind of been a stopgap measure for a lot of people, especially in kind of rural communities. But it's also atrocious, and for the amount of bandwidth that you get, it's massively expensive. Those carriers, you're talking, $10 per megabit that you want to use for downloading. Oof. So even
it's like
even your 90s. Mom and pop, yeah, and you're paying out the butt for really not even good internet, because like if it's cloudy or there's a lot of humidity, it's borderline useless. Mm-hmm. So we have internet deserts.
Oh yeah. We have little pockets of internet within a desert, yes. A huge wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much getting back on track.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, a piece of candy. I think what we can do is talk about the because we did a lot about talking about the software and stuff like that, and one of the things is going like the free avenues, and one of those is, I use this a lot, is DaVinci Resolve. Mm. It's very similar to Adobe Promote. Wow, words are hard today. Adobe Premiere. What is in here?
It ain't water.
Nope. But it's very similar to Adobe Premiere. It's very capable, and it's absolutely free for what a person needs to do a lot of video editing, and it gives you a lot of cool stuff that you can work with as well. There is also, if you're looking at like doing 3D rendering, or not even that, there's Blender. There's Tahoma 2D, which is similar to doing motion graphics on for like lower thirds in TV shows and newscasts. This is a little thing that pops up with the person's name. It's basically this stuff right here, the lower third. I'm pointing to our name tags.
Yeah, there you go, the name tags. Literally the lower third of your screen.
So there's a lot of stuff out there that, even if you're hesitant, just try it. And like I said earlier, there is a learning curve to all these programs. No matter how they cost or if they're free, there's still going to be a learning curve in how to actually do something and to make it look halfway decent.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the point of entry is one of the things that people make a mistake, and one of the things that kind of make especially starting off, is you have to learn kind of the basics of especially getting the kind of video look that you want. On a cell phone, you may or may not have a lot of control over how things kind of work on a cell phone. But one of the things that, especially when taking video, that you really kind of want to learn is no different than photography. You got to figure out lighting. If you can adjust the kind of settings on your camera or on your phone, what do the settings do? So what does ISO do? What does your aperture do? What does your shutter speed do? And then kind of figuring out what kind of speeds work for the kind of look that you're looking for. The usual rule is there's 20 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and then it goes like 120 frames per second if you're doing some slow-mo stuff. But for your average everyday video that you're going to be doing, especially if there's not going to be a lot of action in it, you do like the 20 or 30 frames per second. That's your average TV show or movie. 60 frames per second is if you want that cool ramp down kind of slow motion, but not totally slow motion look. And then 120 frames is like if you want real slow motion. Those kind of very basic rules, if you learn that right off the bat and you can mess around with your cameras, to kind of make those changes, it will make your video, even if you don't even edit it all that much, will make it look 1,000 times better by just kind of learning those camera basics when it comes to getting the video first and then editing it later.
Yeah, and of course you learn different terms like your J and L cuts and your
Mhm.
editing software. So there's a lot of things that you can look at, and I don't know, Tommy, if you have anybody that you've looked at like on YouTube or to help you to learn different things, like different
Yeah,
editors.
yeah. So let me pull up the ones that I actually kind of watched real quick. I gotta look at my YouTubes because I forget. But like one of the main ones is, and it's a great way actually to get your kids involved, is I absolutely love the Corridor Crew.
Oh
They
yeah.
do stuntmen react, they do visual artists react, CGI react, and animators react. And just I've gotten more interest out of my kids because I'll put together a video. None of the kids care. Even if they're in the video, they'll look at it for 30 seconds, but that's cool, and then
Yeah,
walk away and do their own
that's
thing.
nice.
That's nice. You did. That's how'd you make fire coming out of my face? I'm like, because I do things. Uh, but
Magic.
it magic. But like, and I actually have just a straight up playlist of different YouTubers that I kind of learn and do tutorial, watch the tutorials, especially when I get stumped on something. Like uh Cinecom, like this guy does absolutely amazing After Effects tutorials. He
Mhm.
does a lot with music videos. So like there's one that I love that's a Post Malone, DJ Khaled one that he did. Um, and then there's let's see, School of Motion, which they've got great tutorials on those what's called parallax videos. So that's when you take a still image, separate it out so you can kind of move through the still image as if it's a movie or a flyover. If you want to make like say something like if I threw this can up in the air, I mean sorry, this my Bernie Sanders mug. If I threw it up in the air, I can make it just stick as if it's just floating in midair and stuff like that. So they do great tutorials on that. Um, but there's so many people that are so amazing, and even if you think you know everything you could know about video editing or special effects, you know maybe 5% of it. It's absolutely a deep hole that you can fall into.
Yeah, and there's a lot of actually free like plugins and stuff like that that people would pay for that were like hundreds of thousands of dollars now, or maybe $100 at the most for a very professional looking one. That
Oh, and
it's just so easily can be uh, gotten. Wow, turn of the phrase, but yeah,
gotten good.
got
No,
good.
but you're 100% correct. It's absolutely amazing to me the amount of free content out there. Even if you want a certain look, if you want it to look like the Matrix or be grittier, like the new Justice League movie, people already made those color filters for you that you don't have to sit there and bang your head against the wall. Somebody made. I like standing on the shoulders of giants. I'd rather have them do all
Mhm.
the work. Uh,
Yeah.
if somebody already did it and they already did it better than I am, I'm more than happy to go ahead and take like a Lux, which is a color correction kind of thing, and take it if somebody else already has that look. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, a lot of those creators actually put up the assets that they use. So if you're watching a tutorial, usually they'll have a link in the description where you can download, okay, that Lux, you can download in that plugin, you can download that comp, and just put it right into your video.
Yeah, I mean, even what was it? The kids over in was it Kenya when they did the recreation of the Extraction, a Netflix original film. It's
Mhm.
Extraction. They recreated pretty much the whole trailer shot by shot using whatever they had, and that wasn't. I
Mhm.
mean, it's Kenya. They don't really have much, but they make do with a lot of the stuff that they don't have. And it's just funny to watch what a lot what they did matched up perfectly to the trailer. And they even got I forget, I think Netflix sent them a whole bunch of like cameras and
Hmm.
laptops to help, bring their game up so much better. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, hey, you know what? If these little kids in Kenya can do this great piece of work, what could our kid or your kid or you watching do as well?
Well, I mean, and we focus so much on the software and a little bit on the hardware kind of aspects of making videos with your kids. But one thing that we missed out on, and it's sometimes the most fun part of doing videos with kids, is the practical effects.
Hmm.
It's all right. You take if you want an explosion behind you, as you're running or something like that, you take basically a 2x4 or a piece of wood, kind of make a seesaw out of it, put a bunch of dirt, bury it a little bit, and as your kid runs by, he steps on and this is, I mean, this is how they used to make movies. Even now, they still use this stuff to
Hmm.
to make explosions in movies. You hit that ramp on the top side, and it's going to kick up all that dirt as if an explosion. And all you have to do is get explosion sound and put it in that video, and it looks legit. It's no different than anything that you would have seen in the last 100 years of filmmaking, or taking a little camera and putting it through like a book just off the top of it, and
Hmm.
having that depth of field like that. I have my hand right here. Like, as soon as
In
that
front
thing
here.
wants to, there we go. See, like that.
Focus.
Now you got that crazy depth of field right there. But you pull back and
Magic.
but
Magic.
magic.
Wow, Tommy, how'd you
I
do
made my
that?
face blur. Wait, no, that's blurry. There you go. I'm like, oh, magic.
But yeah, there's all the different, like going into practical effects, and you can use air compressors, and that's what they do in like large scale movies or TV shows. Is they have a drum barrel hooked up to an air compressor or an air tank. He'll put leaves and garbage and crap in there, and let it go off, and it seems like, oh, there's a big explosion. Or they use pyrotechnics, but you can go the redneck way and use fireworks.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. I would, unfortunately, my kids aren't much into the action kind of stuff like that. They'd rather, they like doing, like I said, I'll do skateboarding videos with my stepdaughter and stuff. Uh, but if you got your kid and you can make them be like, all right, we're gonna do this explosion in the background and stuff like that, and you have them kicking up dirt or whatever, having, throwing up leaves for a romantic scene or something like that. Because the best thing that you could ever do is look at behind the scenes videos and actually see, like, here's this amazing scene in this movie, and it's just a bunch of grips just throwing stuff at them,
Yeah.
like, or it's a guy holding a hose and just pointing it up in the air like you did when you were a kid to be like, it's raining now. That's how it's still done in a lot of ways, and still, in my opinion, a little bit of, still love practical effects.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah.
that look you can't beat, and then if you add a little CGI, you add a little explosion in the background or something like that, like the actual explosion. If you mix it in correctly, it looks great. And that's what gets the kids like wanting to come back and do more.
And that's the thing is practical effects is I think is more in tune to actually feeling like your project or your film is more alive instead of solely relying on CGI or letting the computer do all the work. If you can do a lot of practical effects or practical sets, it makes things seem more realistic. Yeah, I mean, if you're really good at the CGI work, but it has that disconnect that we're not there yet to fully trick our our brains to thinking that it's something different, that it's an actual physical prop or something like that. But I mean, we're getting pretty close. It's just it's not there yet. Practical effects is the way to go, which I'm saying.
Yeah, and you have that practical effects, but then you also have to figure out, because your kid may not be into making skateboarding videos or things that are exploding. Maybe they're more interested in kind of doing something like this, like a vlog,
Hmm.
and that takes a whole other kind of spin on things. Like, all right, how do you figure out your background lighting? How do you figure out? I mean, I've got these big dumb lights. You could see it in my Jaws photo because I tried moving. On the other hand, I tried moving that, but like I've got these bar lights here, and how to make things look pretty. I'm actually getting more lights delivered today, but there's that aspect of it. How do you get your lighting right for these kind of YouTube vlog videos?
Yeah, 'cause the
And
big
how do
thing
you?
is set design. Because you can look at a lot of things like live streaming, because I do that a lot. Is you look at a couple create or people who do live streaming, and they sit there in their bedroom. They got their bed. This is a whole bunch of crap on top of it, and you got 2 days worth of food containers behind them on a really bad headset, and they're making millions of dollars a year. And you're like,
Yep.
what? Because the reason why they're that way is because how they play the game is so much better than a normal Joe Schmo. No offense, Joe.
No,
Yeah.
it's true.
But then you take that aspect of it, right? And then you watch. I don't know if you guys ever watched Robot Co-op. So if you haven't, you really should. Especially if you're a big Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan. So Robot Co-op is, and the production value is really, really good, especially their YouTube videos back in the day. The guy literally built robots that are voiced by his friends, no different than Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they're stuck in a movie theater surrounded by zombies, and that's the whole plot of their series. And they're stuck playing video games, either very, very bad old video games, really, really bad new video games, or sometimes they play nice new video games. But the production value is absolutely amazing for what they do on their Twitch stream. So if you ever get a chance, definitely recommend watching them. They have a great YouTube channel that they don't really post on anymore because YouTube. But they have where they play Fallout 4, and it is one of the funniest videos about video games I've ever watched in my entire life.
I think you sent me some of those, didn't you?
Yeah, especially when you talk about Mama Meth Mouth. My girlfriend and I still walk around like that, saying Mama Meth Mouth whenever we play Fallout 4.
But yeah, it's when you try and get your kids and doing like live streaming, if they want to go that route, the importance of thinking, okay, set design or not even set design, but yeah, let's just say set design. What is in your background? This is not your typical, like I said, dirty room in the background. Everyone sees that. Well, you got cool stuff over there. You got all those fun colors.
It's dirty though. It needs a lot of cleaning.
But you have to think about how your perception of oneself through the camera to your audience and how they will perceive you.
It's a persona.
Are you gonna be just it's a persona. And are you gonna be that loud, angry, sweaty tryhard? Or are you gonna be a chill streamer, or are you gonna be in a mix in between, or whatever? It's just something that you have to think about for your kids. It's like you don't want them. I show my daughter like this sweaty tryhard. It's like, don't be like these guys.
Yeah,
they're a flash in the pan with their audience. Now the audience just comes over there and says, "Oh, what crazy thing are they gonna do next?" And they get bored of that after a year, and then they will never come back.
Or the next one comes along and they start following that person instead of the other one, yeah.
And then you start growing your toxic community. And like, do you really want people to be like just making fun of you or anyone else in your community, and or now leaks out to everywhere else through Twitch and YouTube? Like, no, you got to think of different things, not just hit go live and play a game.
Well, it's like what's your gimmick? And also setting up expectations. My stepson was interested for a short time in getting into streaming, and I've done some videos with him. He's helped me out on some video shoots and stuff. But the thing that I also have to kind of help him recognize is you may not get 1 million views. They'll go back and like my stepdaughter does Beat Saber mixed reality video game streams. And kind of setting that expectation that, your favorite YouTuber, your favorite streamer may have, 1.5 million subscribers, but there's literally probably at this point millions of video game streamers out there that don't get anybody, maybe get
Oh,
one or
yeah.
two views. And, but each one of those people that they really like have a gimmick. They have something that sets them apart from the rest of the streamers. Whether some of them use tactics that obviously no children should ever use, and you got to keep them away from that. But there has to be a gimmick. You have to have a get. You have to figure out a reason why people are going to subscribe to your channel.
Yeah, because I forget the exact numbers, but on Twitch alone, if you're a streamer and you have anywhere from 5 to 10 viewers, concurrent viewers, you are in the top 80% of people who made it.
It's basically almost like a pyramid scheme, almost level kind of attrition.
So the only people that are like successful, or like the Tyler ones, XQCs, and everyone else like that, they are the 0.01% of the entire Twitch platform. You're never going to get an audience right off the bat within 2 weeks. I constantly I talk with other people, and then they're like, oh, why am I not getting any views? Like, I've tried all this stuff and it's not working. It's like, well, you got to try at least minimum of 6 months of putting this work in. And if that's not working, try something. Try changing it up a little bit. Try schedule around for the next 6 months. It's just, don't expect to, like I said, go live and play a game and expect 50 people all of a sudden to show up. Especially if you're streaming Fortnite or any kind of popular game, you're going to be scrolling for 2 hours and you're going to be at the very bottom of the list. No one's going to be doing that. They're only maybe 2 pages and at most, and that's it. So you got to figure out what game, or what, if you're going to be like just chatting, or if you're going to be doing like cooking or doing science or tech, whatever. You figure out your gimmick and stay with it for at least 6 months. And if that doesn't work, try change out your schedule. Try, if possible, to do certain things or days of the week that you do the streaming. So it's all these small things that you can do to try to get better at what you're doing, and you learn along the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Because you're going to find things that work for you. You're going to find things that don't work for you. Especially with kids, the streaming may be a little bit harder because there isn't direct feedback. It's all right, how many people are watching my stream? Oh, I've got one. This is kind of disheartening. Or maybe you're streaming to absolutely nobody and you're talking to absolutely nobody, but you have to keep it entertaining even though there's nobody watching you, just in case that guy just in case that person creeps in and you're like, well, now I'm just watching this idiot standing here with his finger up his nose playing Fortnite. All right, well, so I could watch this anywhere.
Exactly. I can do it. I can watch a mirror.
Yeah, this is what I was doing 20 minutes ago. Why am I watching this?
Yeah, and a lot of people, the best advice I can give for like your kids and stuff, in your software or on your Twitch dashboard, just turn off the viewer tab or the viewer number so it doesn't show whatsoever, and just
so your heart doesn't break.
Exactly. So and also another thing is, I've done this so many times, and it is test out your audio. Is your mic muted? You don't want to be streaming for an hour and realize at the end of your stream that your mic was muted the entire time.
And make sure that you boot up your computer at least 3 hours before your stream to make sure that everything's up to date and doesn't explode like I did today.
or defer Windows updates till after, or sometime down in the future.
And put everything on Do Not Disturb so you don't get, especially if you're pulling in audio from your laptop.
But yeah, there is kids, they see these like YouTube live streamers or Twitch or anything like that, and I have to do it same thing constantly with my daughter. She comes up to me, she does these little videos, and it's like, okay, that's cool, and she posts up, and allow her to do that. And she's like, "Oh, I got all these views." I'm like, "Well, that's more than I get." They're like the little Roblox videos and stuff like that. So I'm like, "That's great. You're doing better than I am."
It's always worse when they're doing better than you are, because then you're like, you son of a. Oh,
Oh, the student has become the master.
this is not acceptable at all. Hey,
I
it's
think
worse when you have to ask your kid for a shout out. Like, hey, can you go ahead and direct some people over to my, help me out a little bit, please?
Can you do a raid
Hey,
for me?
yeah, can we
Yeah, yeah.
collab a little bit?
Yeah. Hey, shout outs, yeah. Please follow me on like and subscribe, please.
She's
You
constantly
slip a
reminding
banner
me.
on her thing.
Yeah, she's constantly reminding me, like, "Oh, I only got so many years before I can stream on Twitch myself." I'm like, "Yeah, I know," because we gave you that goal to look forward to. Like, I'm gonna be your moderator. I'm gonna be in your chat, and then
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is your chat. I mean, in closing out here is there are the worst dredge of society out there, and YouTube comments are probably the worst.
Oh, yeah. No, turn off YouTube comments for your kids'
Yeah.
stuff. Don't. Likes are okay. Don't do comments.
I would say the biggest thing is just be involved.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the big thing.
like not just supportive, but involved. Like you were talking about, being the moderator to the stream, like actually being there.
So you can smack down these idiots that whatever is going through their mind. I don't want to know, but whatever. But yeah, especially on Twitch, it depends. Female streamers have the worst experience on any platform because us guys are the worst.
Yeah, we're disgusting.
Yeah, we are disgusting.
I didn't realize how bad it was until my girlfriend and I started playing when I still lived in Tampa and she still lived up here, playing Grand Theft Auto together. And we'd play online, and she has a very girly username. Matter of fact, girl is in her name. And as soon as we would pop up in Los Santos, every dude for a 20-mile radius on the map just was like, "Oh, girl," and then she would literally just get bombarded with DMs nonstop. And then when she was like, "No, I'm playing with my boyfriend," or just ignore him, all of a sudden, like a tow missile just would fly through the air and just slam into both of us.
That was a friend of mine that also Grand Theft Auto would intentionally play on his wife's profile
and just mess with people.
So same thing. His wife has it's you're playing with a girl when you look at the name or tag, and not only that, but it's her profile, so it's pink, and all that stuff. So he would intentionally play with his mic off and would go online and play, and it was ridiculous. He did it, for the purpose of doing this. So he made out with, because in Grand Theft Auto they had their shark cards, like it's like the in-game money and stuff like that. Oh my god, the amount of money this kid made was just ridiculous.
He's going a good angle.
Places. Oh, he had the best cars.
Oh, he's trolling the trolls.
Oh, absolutely. It's ridiculous the amount that he got off of this just by playing under the girl's profile.
If you're that much of a creep,
didn't do nothing.
You deserve it. I have no sympathy for him. If you're creeping out people like that, man, I have no. That's one of my concerns is, because my stepdaughter likes making these mixed realities. So she's in the game, in the VR game. So it's a full body thing. And, you have to be wary, make sure, hey, I tell her, you don't want to look like a bum. Don't look too nice. Don't look too nice. So
yeah, you don't want to be in the ratty clothes unless that's your character gimmick that you want to come up with.
yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, it's a crazy world out there, and there's a lot of tools and stuff for help you kids out. And of course, we're going to put links to in the description to all the different tools and places that you can find help. And, like the Quarter Crew and Adobe and DaVinci and Tahoma, and all sorts of all that stuff that we talked about in here in the episode. Tom, you got any closing remarks?
No, I mean, if your kids are getting into it, definitely, it's cool kind of thing to get into. It's lots of fun, and there's always work. I don't do it professionally. I do it more for, my own self, and then occasionally for businesses and stuff. But if you really get into it, there's definitely a career path that's actually pretty awesome, and I can only see it getting a little bit better in the future.
All right. And Joe, you?
I would just say, just let them play. Let them play. Let them experience. Let them break things. Let them do things wrong. Let them really experience it themselves. There's a very innate nature, especially for us, to want to be like, no, you should check this out. Look at this, or oh, let me show you this, and and kind of like move and get in there.
Let me show you. Hold on. Get out of the way.
Especially if it's something you like. You know what I mean? Like that's the hardest part. I feel for a lot of people. So just let them play. Let them figure it out on their own. Let them break it. Let them do what they need to do, and then just nurture it from there.
You have to think of it as art in a way. Just kind of let them do it the way that they want to do it, even if you don't get it.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, definitely some great things that we talked about today. And be sure to follow our Twitter account. That's at the Collective Network. Also at the Geek Podcast. They're on the old Twitters, Geek20 Podcast. Be much appreciated if you did that, so you can see when we release new episodes. And I've been cutting up our older episodes and putting up on the Geek 2.0 YouTube page, different highlights and all sorts of fun stuff there. So come by, join the community, and let us know what you think in the comments down below, because we'll read it
Eventually,
if you're nice. But until then, I want to say thank you for coming by, and until next time, we'll catch you later.
Bye, guys.